Good morning, everyone. Let me call to order the June 19th, 2025 regular planning board meeting. Begin with our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, of course, is our conflict of interest statement. Does any member have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? And if so, please state so at this time. Richard?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not as
Do
well.
not. Item 3, amend or approve the agenda today. As you can see, we have a quorum, but the bare minimum. So my suggestion is we do approve the agenda as is.
I second it.
I do have one issue. We did receive kind of an informal document about the land use plan. I'd like to spend a few minutes discussing that document.
I guess I'd rather not at this time until we get.
We
What's
can,
the question? I kind of reviewed it, but I don't remember.
No, there's a couple of issues, and we can put it into administrative comments if you want.
It was the
Wes McLeod, in the agenda packet, we received
it was the PDF of the presentation.
PowerPoint, a document concerning the land
we
use
could put
plan.
that in number
Okay.
7. We'll talk about that. I guess we want to call it the COG presentation. Is that what it was?
Yes. PowerPoint.
Which I don't even have with me yet. Okay. So make a motion to approve the agenda with the one additional administrative comments on that presentation.
I guess we move.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the first order of business is the minutes from our meeting of May the 15th.
I would just like to comment again that I think the depth and precision of these minutes is to be highly commended.
Yeah.
And I move to adopt them as I didn't see anything that I wanted to change.
Jerry, anything?
I concur with Richard.
Yep.
That was very
Excellent
very well
job.
done.
So I agree, no changes. So anyone want to make a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the minutes are approved as drafted. Any public comments? Seeing no public comments on the agenda, and we'll move on to our new business item of the day, which is a zoning text amendment concerning non-conforming structures on non-conforming lots in MR3. I'll turn it over to Ron to give the staff report and the whole background on this.
So you may go through the whole background?
Yeah, I guess that's what we're going to come to a vote today.
Yes. So much for a short meeting.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
Okay, so we had a conversation, a pretty detailed conversation last month at your meeting, and I think we introduced the item at your meeting before that. So in May of 21, Town Council approved an amendment to the MR3 zoning district standards. That amendment increased the minimum lot size from 7,500 square feet to 10,000 square feet for the MR3 districts. It also increased the side setback from 5 feet to 10% of the average lot width. Then, as part of the adoption of the current UDO in September 23, the minimum required setback for lot zone MR3 was changed from that 10% of the lot width to 7.5 feet. And as a result, we have created several situations, non-conforming situations in some of our subdivisions, including Sandpiper Bay, Jaguars Lair, and Sea Trail. So at your last meeting, we had 3 options. We had several options we talked about. And following discussion, you guys kind of directed staff to prepare an amendment that would apply this non-conforming situation to existing single-family homes, not accessory structures, limit the enlargements to the side setback, and then limit the expansion of development to no more than 50% of the existing home. I did provide you an example of a Board of Adjustment case that we had at Sandpiper Bay in your case summary. And in that case, the Board of Adjustment did deny the request. They wanted to basically build a covered porch onto the back of their home and basically just come down the side of their house. Same, their house was 5 feet off the side setback. It was in that particular situation, the house had been there since, sorry, I thought I had it in my notes here.
You're right. 2000.
2004. The home was constructed in 2004, but the subdivision was approved when it was under Brunswick County. Then it was annexed into the town, and even when it was annexed, the 5 foot was the setback. So that said, we have language on page 4 of your case summary, page 4, page 9 of your packet. At the top, proposed language to remedy the situation based on the conversation and direction we had last month. So to read that, it said, in the MR3 zoning district, a detached single-family home that existed prior to September 23, and the reason that's when the Land Development Code, or the UDO, was adopted, and that is non-conforming regarding to the interior side setback. So a detached single-family home that existed and that is non-conforming regarding the interior side setback may be expanded or enlarged, provided such expansion or enlargement does not create any new nonconformity or increase the extent of the existing nonconformity with regard to the side setback requirement. That expansion cannot exceed 50% of the square footage of the existing single-family home. And then there's a statement that references accessory structures to comply with the accessory structure nonconforming section just below there.
Right. So the accessory structure will have to conform to the existing standard.
Yes, letter D.
7.5 feet.
Yes.
So if you want to build a pool house or something, it will be 7.5 feet from the
Yeah, the new pool house example would have to comply. I did reference a non-conforming accessory structure section down below. If there happens to be a non-conforming accessory structure, they would have to comply with the section already in the code.
I have a question, because it seems to me there's kind of two situations here. There are non-conforming structures that were created by the fact that that lot was in the town's jurisdiction, but the town changed the rules. And then there are situations, sound like this one might be one, where a community existed, homes were built, and then that community was annexed, so now the rules apply. Is there some distinction that we need to make between those two situations? Because right now we're saying they're all the same.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I think both happened in this particular, on the Sandpiper Bay situation.
Right.
Although you've got to remember, this is a town-wide text amendment, not just applicable to Sandpiper Bay.
I mean, in this case, the lot is non-conforming.
Yes.
And that was caused by they were conforming when they were annexed.
They were conforming when the subdivision approved under Brunswick County.
And then they became non-conforming, which is the same to anybody else in the town or ETG, when we changed the minimum lot size from 75 to 10. And then when we changed I don't remember what their lot width was, 60?
I believe it's 60 feet.
So they were, and when we changed it to 10%, then they became non-conforming. The structure became non-conforming because the setback wasn't 6 feet.
Correct.
It was 5 feet, and then they became more non-conforming by
We
another
made it
1.5 feet because they weren't 7.
Correct.
But all their non-conformance were caused by changes in the UDO.
Right, but here's the distinction. So in the history of Sunset Beach, we've been annexing
over the years,
planned communities. So there's a difference between someone that built their home before their community was annexed, okay, who has now come under the jurisdiction of the town. And I have and maybe my sympathies are misplaced, but someone who's been under the jurisdiction of the town, I mean, they can vote us all out if they don't like the rules that we create, but there's some standard that they have to abide by the rules that we create. Whereas someone that wasn't part of the town, had no ability to change the town's policy, and now comes under our influence, I mean, maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but is there some distinction that needs to be made, or do we just throw them all in the same thing and give
Well, I
them
think the
some relief?
remedy of the solution, if you guys are agreeable to the solution, would apply to either situation. So
Okay,
whether
all right.
they were in the town when they're
Right.
or not,
Because a nonconformity
still-
was created. In this case, multiple nonconformities were created.
You're right.
yeah,
Yeah, because I think
So
some
it covers the same thing.
right. I think some of the changes that we made in terms of MR3 was an attempt to influence future development to adhere to a certain standard that reflected our values.
Right. And if someone, say there's a lot there,
Yeah.
it's the same 8,600 square feet.
Right.
It's a non-conforming lot.
Right.
And if it's currently unimproved, if they decide to improve it, put a structure on, the structure has to conform,
Right.
which means it'd be at 7.5 feet.
Right.
They can't say,
Oh, by the way,
I bought this lot
right.
when it was 5 feet,
Yeah.
but I mean, the lot is still non-conforming, which is fine, but the structure will have to be conforming when
Right.
built.
So they don't get a break when we do
No.
this. Okay.
yes.
Because I'm very sympathetic to, okay, we made these rules in order to shape the destiny of our community. We
Yeah.
really don't want to penalize a
Right, so
single.
I think that's what you're going at. So
Okay.
say there was an 8,600 foot square lot out there that doesn't have a house on it right
Right,
now,
yeah,
and somebody wants to put a house on it now, they're going to have to be at 7.5 feet.
Right.
exactly.
Even if they say, well, my neighbor's at 5 feet, and we say, well, he built it in 2004.
And I've had that situation.
Right.
I've had
Right.
that situation.
It's now 2025. You have to be at 7. They can
Yeah.
go to the Board of Adjustment if they want.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
right. So I think we're fine. The only issue I have with the language,
Mhm.
and again, might be a little, is the word existed in the second, is that specific enough? What does existed mean? When I was going, in my mind was permitted. What does existed mean?
Well, the intent was it existed back
Right,
tying back to that.
but what
same
does that mean?
first sentence?
It got a permit, it got built, it got a CO, it was
it's
existing in someone's
constructed.
mind.
I mean, do they have an approved preliminary plat?
So to me, it was like, what defines that breakpoint that in other words, because the thing was, our UDO was adopted in September 23, what gets them into the prior UDO? Was it permit at the time? A submission of a permit?
Built.
No, I don't think so, right? If somebody, say in August of 2023, somebody submits an application for a permit at the 10%, and you approved it, wasn't built yet, but it's permitted under the old UDO. All I'm trying to say, I'm not sure existed defines the time cutoff correctly.
So
You know what I'm saying?
that goes back
You
to
hear what I'm
the fir-
saying?
Yeah, so that would go back to the first sentence, first time existed was used as well.
Where?
In the MR3 zoning district, a detached single-family home that existed prior to September 23.
Yeah, that's the word I'm talking about.
Yes.
It existed in the second sentence. What does,
So it could,
I mean, existed,
or permitted.
because to
But-
me, it's the permit that causes what UDO you're under, right?
So to me, I mean, it's kind of it's a rabbit hole because we could say we're permitted. Well, that permit could have expired. Well, I got my permit in August of 23. I never built my home, so now I want to go build it under this scenario. So
Hmm.
that's
So if they got a permit in August 2023 under the 10%,
correct.
okay, which would be, say, in this case, 6 feet, and then they didn't build it,
That permit expires.
the permit expired, now they're back to now they're at the 7.
Correct.
I just want to make sure we don't create something that's gray here.
But if that
Somewhat highly unlikely, but what,
should the standard be an issued occupancy permit? Now that we know the home's built, if you want to add to it,
that's all. All I'm saying is that to me, that what's existed maybe is a little not specific enough.
Yeah, existed was similar language.
I know
found
what
two or three codes.
In your mind, you're
Yes.
saying the house is sitting there, right? It's done before. But really, there could be something that sits. It was, like I said, the most obvious thing. Someone permitted it in
right?
July, and it wasn't done until
December,
after the December.
right?
But really, they had,
Right.
right. So
Yeah, so occupancy,
permitted and built or something. permitted and completed before? No, kind of. I don't know. I don't know. That's all I wonder. Do you have something that could straddle that where existing doesn't quite, and it may be such an unlikely scenario it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an unlikely scenario. Semantics.
Permit's only good for a year.
Yes.
So September 24, any permits that would have been
I'm
prior
talking
to
about a
September
house.
23 would be gone.
Someone that in July of 2023 could have submitted a permit application with a 6-foot setback,
hmm
but not completed. That house didn't exist in September. Didn't exist until December. So what, does this apply to them or not? In other words, it was permitted in August, didn't exist until December, physically.
Well,
Got a CO in December,
Yeah.
you're saying.
So,
but
but
it was existing because the construction had started.
right.
might not have. You could have came here and got your permit in August or September, just before the UDO changed.
Vested.
Yeah, we could say home that existed or was vested.
Right.
prior
That's
to
all I want to
September.
say is that,
Mhm. Yeah, the vested.
yeah.
No, I get your point.
It may be no house. Well, if I remember correctly, we had somebody come here with a plat just under the wire, right?
Yes, we did.
That they submitted their plat. I don't think it went ahead and ended up changing to Logan or somebody, but they got it just under the wire for that change. So those houses were probably all at the 10%, if you remember, right? That was so. But none of them were platted but not built. Okay, so that all I'm saying is we make sure we define that cutoff. That
One we
I know in our mind we're thinking of a house that's sitting there. Okay, but you could have someone that got it permitted under the 10%, didn't even start construction, didn't even knock the first tree down until October. So nothing existed in September 2023, or whatever the year.
let's add or keep existed, but then add or vested.
Or vested, something like that.
Or vested would mean they've received their permit. The permits did not expire.
Right. Okay. So we say
Even-
existed
and or
vested prior to.
Yes.
So we're going to go.
Yeah, I'm going to say or. To me, and or is irrelevant because and or means either. It's either.
So
Or
a
conjunctive
home that
or-
existed and what?
or vested.
Or so we're going to change it to a detached single-family home that existed or
Was vested.
was vested prior to September 2023. Okay. Got it?
Yes, perfect.
So I guess now, Jerry, anything?
No.
Okay. So we need a motion either to adopt action A, which would to approve this, or action B.
We're to approve.
So we have a
Correct.
motion for A.
Second.
Okay. I'll read action A then before we vote. Action A would be the planning board here recommends approval of the proposed amendment with the one modification to the unified development ordinance that finds that it is neither one, consistent nor inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan, 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan, as there are no specific policies pertaining to non-conforming lots, and two, that is in the public interest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes, no nays. The ayes carry it to action A is approved. 3, 4, 0 against. Very good.
And thank you, Ron.
And certainly we want a code that's not question. We want to be able to be clear in our language. So I think or vested or was vested is a good addition to that.
Great. Okay. That was all the new business. Administrative comments before we get to the COG presentation. Obviously, congratulations to Jerry. Leaving behind us lowlifes in the planning board, moving up to the big council. So good luck to you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Richard.
And I'm assuming then staff is planning to advertise for a replacement. And then being that Jerry was the vice chairman, next meeting we'll have to also pencil in a vote. Hopefully when the rest of our planning board is back and healthy, a vote for a new vice chairman. I plan to be here in July, so it shouldn't be an issue, but someone to conduct the meetings if I'm not here under the weather, such or whatever. So that has to make sure that has to be added. And I guess the only other thing was we were planning on the non-residential parking discussion or not discussion, actually hoping to move forward. So whatever work needs to be done between here and then, I realize there's a holiday in there. I'm open to coming in or reviewing text or whatever in the interim. So. Okay, the other thing would be Richard had some questions on the TCOG presentation. I have to admit I don't have it with me, so you're going to have to be pretty clear on what you're asking so I can try to remember what I read.
What was included in my agenda packet was basically a PowerPoint, which gave some broad guidelines in terms of, and I think Wes was attempting to be instructional rather than directional. And I think most of, what he shared on this is pretty straightforward and adheres to, what we've discussed. My only concern is sometimes these informal documents have a way of becoming formal documents, and there's basically two things on page 4. Does anybody else have this?
I do.
Okay. He sets basically what he calls land use plan components, which are pretty straightforward. Public engagement, community profile, and these are all things that we discussed before. Natural systems and environments, community facilities and services. These are all things that should be part of the land use plan. Existing conditions and land use patterns, goals and policies, future land use plan. And the only thing I wanted to stress was, I think, and Stuart and I talked about this, is really one of the things we want to accomplish is really a strategic statement of the vision of what we want Sunset Beach to be in 5 years, in 10 years. And while these individual components kind of speak to that, I think it's really important that we have that as a goal. So when we have this, finally agree on this land use plan, it's very clear what our intent was in terms of how we hope to guide the future of the land use plan. The second thing is in roles and responsibilities. Nowhere in this roles and responsibilities, I'm assuming that at the end of the day, the land use plan has to be approved by the planning board, and that's not mentioned in roles and responsibilities. That's pretty much my 2 comments on. Oh, then there was one other thing, and I know he did this really as an example. In terms of what would come, but he talks about the Sunset Boulevard Vision Plan, which reflects the possibility of string development up and down 179. I want to stress it. Hopefully the goal of the land use plan will be to create a vision for a village-style concentric commercial development in the Mud District, and that's not reflected in the presentation that he shared with us.
Well,
Anything else?
some of that stuff I don't think he could have. I guess let me go backwards. I don't think the planning board approves or disapproves it. We just make a recommendation to send it to the council or not. So I think that language is, we don't approve or we don't disapprove. We just make a recommendation to council to adopt or not adopt, or we say nothing. Kind of just like the conditional zoning. Right. So I don't think that we're just that's kind of whether we call us an advisory committee or a steering committee or something like that, basically is to help the COG come up with a product that we think the council should look at and then consider for approval, and then it's up to them.
Yeah.
So
I guess
but I don't view this, I guess this is, I didn't view the document as being final. If anything, I viewed it as more preliminary, because I'm assuming, and maybe I'm assuming wrong, is there's going to be some sort of scope letter and contract with the town and this consultant on what's to be the components in the plan. So, and I don't know what input we have on that. We don't get to review the scope letter beforehand and say, hey, we like this or that in there. I'm assuming Ron and Lisa are doing that. So, you get a scope letter with COG, and then you agree to some sort of contract and a price, and those are the components in there. It's either going to be these components either some not in or some addition. That's up to you. Do we, or, I mean, one that all could be done already, and I don't even know it. So you're sitting there spot. So that's the key. This document was just, to me, is almost like part of the proposal
But that was
between COG and the town.
but that was also his presentation from
Yes,
early
May 5th.
May.
Right.
Right. So I view it as just sort of his almost part of his proposal or COG's proposal to the town,
Mhm.
informing us on what. So I don't know what the town and the consultant has agreed on for what the actual. If the town says these are the components and that's what they have a signed contract with the consultant, then that's what it is. If they've added to it or subtracted from it, then that's what it is. We're not really part of the contract part. If
Well,
we want
I-
to be, then that's a whole different deal.
And I understand, Ron, where
Yeah.
you're coming from. My experiences in these kinds of things as a business development executive is that these preliminary documents, as informal as they may appear at first blush, have a way of getting codified and solidified. And if you don't raise concerns about how they're shaped at this point, trying to
Yes.
raise it later
because they
sometimes
become sometimes inputs in the subsequent documents.
exactly.
So, but to me, the key point is what's the scope letter and contract look like?
Right.
Do we have one?
Yeah, Lisa.
A lot has changed in 30 days.
Okay. No wonder.
And Wes McLeod is no longer with the Cape Fear Council of Governments. He has gone out on his own and created a company called Anchor Point Planning. And Ron has gone with him. And we are under contract right now with Anchor Point Planning. So what will happen in July, probably at your July meeting, and we haven't discussed this yet, is that you will have a new scope, a new presentation of how Anchor Point Planning will guide you through the land use plan. And at
Now-
that point, that can
Now,
be
when we
included.
come to the July meeting, will that be contracted already, or still a proposal?
We're
to be
already under contract.
So we have
Well,
a
as
scope
of July
letter.
1,
We
we're
have a
under
scope
contract.
letter. So the scope of the contract is known.
But that contract,
And at that point, so in July, what's Anchor Point?
Anchor Point.
Is going to tell us what the scope is.
Mhm.
Okay.
okay, but that
So I guess before, can you tell us at this point, does the existing scope and contract include any items that Richard has addressed? Or should I be ready for the fact that a partially disappointed planning board on July, that some of the scoping that we had hoped to be in there will not be in there?
The contract is not to that degree. The contract is that Anchor Point will consult with the planning board to update the land use plan.
Somewhat
So-
general.
It's a general,
So
and then
we
it'll
can
be
have
up to you all and Wes and Ron
to help frame.
to frame
Okay.
what that.
So we
is
we
gonna
can
look
use
like.
this July meeting to more codify the scope,
Mhm.
and that's okay with the contract.
And that's okay with the contract.
So
Okay.
I'd be for the planning board, those who are here and those who are coming, who are listening to this, or it will be in the minutes, is then prior to that meeting, you need to write down, make sure that these things are written down, or you have suggestions to come in a solid way, proposals that when you go through the list, or we go through the list that they say they think should be in it, and you say, well, I'm happy with 5 out of the 6. One I would like to remove, and one that every member is prepared to
chime in.
specifically with what they want, and some matter of fact, paper, if you can.
Right. So
In
we
advance would be
we
even
can,
In advance would be nice.
we can presume at this July meeting that Anchor Point has been hired. Congratulations.
Mhm.
And the scope and direction of a land use plan will be something that will be based on their recommendation that we will negotiate and formalize.
Mhm.
So we'll know what the land use plan is trying to be.
The only difference would be if you are adding things that will cost more money than what we have
Budget.
proposed.
Okay.
or what we are under contract for. At that point, that would need to be tabled and taken to the town council to find out if they want to go
Right.
to
And
that
the-
direction and fund it.
And the
budget.
survey
So we
that
could do
the
pluses and
survey that
minuses.
we keep discussing about, now is that part of the Anchor Point? Is that included in the Anchor Point contract, or is that separate and would be contracted by the town separately?
The land use plan?
No, the survey. The land use plan in 2017, there was a comprehensive survey where over 1,000 Sunset Beach residents were polled and asked specific questions about what they wanted in their
Survey
future
is a component of the land use plan rewrite.
But is that a component of Anchor Point's agreement?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's been funded in terms of their contract.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, so. it's just-
Because the survey isn't new. The survey is a component of every single land use plan developed
Okay.
across the state.
It's a,
Well,
Which would be covered in this.
It's a given.
Originally, the old company,
Mhm.
public engagement, results and input,
Correct.
kind of a broad sense there,
Correct.
but that's included in it. But
And
so
it's
if we come
broad
up,
because
so
you
if we
can
come up
get-
with pluses and minuses that don't change the contract, then
Mhm.
we're good to go.
Got it.
If something changes the contract, then
Correct.
it will have to be kicked back up to our fine town council here, Jerry,
Yeah.
to settle.
It just, it could be, I know what you guys are trying to do. There's a budgetary restraint on this, is how much money, is it 50,000 that's been applied for this, or did I read that right?
Do you remember?
So just keep in mind with what we like to do, there is a budget and some budget
Right,
constraints.
that's what I was
Yeah.
saying.
That's all.
I mean, if we go through this and
67.
67.
Okay,
So if we go through this and find out
you need more.
we need more, or we can say there's always trade-offs. How about we trade this off for this?
Mhm.
The net's the
And
same.
Stewart had
And then
talked
then
about
it's
at the
fine to
last
go.
meeting about bringing maybe consultants in that are specific for bike and ped paths and things of that nature. So that would be a component that would add to.
And I
So
think
those
you gave
types
us a
of
number
things
for
would
that.
go back
Yeah.
to the town council.
Or part of this land use plan,
Excuse me.
we're going to do this
Bless you.
as a, I don't want to call it a supplement, but that the land use plan said we will do a ped and path thing within the next year, and then it will have to be funded separately then. So if we put that in that way and the council says, okay, that seems reasonable, and they
Mhm.
vote to approve it,
Mhm.
then of course they're going to essentially voting to spend the money in the following year.
Mhm.
So this could be, I kind of consider maybe like a spoken wheel, with the center of this thing being the land use plan, but we may have a few spokes that go off that require additional work to add to, supplement, round off, whatever you want to call it, that may require some additional thought and expenditure,
Correct.
but that it be put in here that next step will be ABC, and that within the next year or two, whatever
Mhm.
seems appropriate.
I have a couple of questions about this change. I mean, congratulations to Wes and Ron. Does this change Ron's status as,
Nope.
so basically now you're being contracted through this organization that you formed?
Mhm.
Fantastic.
that Wes
Okay.
is for, yes.
And it won't change Wes's status other than that.
Nope.
Okay, good.
Just a name change.
Okay. And second, I mean, Jerry, what's your status going to be in July?
Right now, this will be my last meeting. I am, as soon as it's over, I'll be resigning from the planning
Okay.
board.
And is that something that's compelled by ordinance, or is this something that is,
It's state law.
Yeah.
it's what?
State law.
Okay.
Yeah, so I said we'll advertise or whatever it takes for,
And we may already be there. Are we there?
I didn't look at this,
There's something on the website already.
Okay.
to advertise for.
So-
It's an in-town position, so it should be a little easier to fill. You might have
Yep.
some people that already have, when Kevin applied, there might have been some other folks that also applied at the time. No, he was ETJ.
Never mind.
Never mind. So
Mhm.
in town's usually a little easier.
Right.
And then, of course, if we get someone for the next meeting, then we can vote on I mean, if we don't, vote on the vice chair,
Mhm.
just so that in case.
Well, Jerry,
And the
we'll
town
miss you.
council's meeting in July is late. So it could be that Kimberly finds us that person and they interview and they could appoint at the July 14th meeting.
If
It
not,
would
be
put
on.
them right in line with your next meeting.
Okay.
All righty, very good.
All right, Jerry, thank you for your service.
thank you for your
It's been a
help.
pleasure to work with you, and
It goes both ways, Richard.
good. Thank you, and good luck with your
Thank you.
role on the council.
Thank you.
And
Good
Anyway.
Okay. Last item is any further public comments? No public comments. Well, next item and final, we need a motion to adjourn.
I so
I
move.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 9:30.
That's a record.
That's a record.